Hey everyone, welcome back to the Juan Palomino Breakthrough Podcast. I'm Jenna and I'm here with my husband Juan.
Hello everybody.
And today we're diving into something that often goes unnoticed, numbness. Not the kind you get at the dentist, but the emotional kind, the soul kind. That feeling of being disconnected, shut down, just trying to make it through the day.
Yeah, it's crazy. Numbness isn't always, it's just not obvious. You can still be functioning, you can still, show up, but it's this thing where like deep down, like, something's off, right? And you're not feeling joy. You're not feeling much of anything. And sometimes it's actually a defense mechanism. So we actually just shut down because we've been hurt. Or maybe we're just overwhelmed.
So let's start there. Mm-hmm. What are some signs that someone might be emotionally or spiritually numb, even if they wouldn't say it out loud?
Yeah. Again, great question. I think numbness can sometimes look like distraction. We're really good at distracting ourselves so we don't feel our emotions. Another way that I've seen numbness in people is busyness. We could become very busy bees, right? Doing all kinds of stuff. So we don't have to think about our emotions. We don't have to think about the person that the pain comes from or the hurt. Make it turn into overworking or just, ready for this one? Just scrolling endlessly on social media. Guilty. I just want to numb my pain or numb and escape, right? Yeah. It's a big escapism. And so you might say, here's another one. You might find yourself saying, I'm fine a lot. Anybody have someone like that in their life, right? How you doing? I'm fine. Mm-hmm. I'm fine. But kind of giving you that look. Right?
Everything's fine. And there's a dumpster fire in the back.
But the truth is, like, that person that's saying I'm fine a lot, they're really disconnected from their own hearts. That's really what we're trying to do is we're trying to not put our hearts out there so it doesn't get, pounded or hurt again. So another way I should say that numbness is a symptom of is you can't cry, right? So you don't cry anymore. You can't celebrate much either. Basically, life just starts feeling really gray, even if everything looks fine on the outside.
Yeah, I can say that I've definitely been there. And I think, too, growing up and being told, like, when crying, suck it up, or do you want me to give you something to cry about, has really taught me, right? Like, not to cry.
Yeah, don't feel your emotions.
Right. And so that taught me to really numb myself. And so I think part of that is self-taught. The other part, too, is COVID. I think a lot of us went numb after COVID. And maybe because it might have been traumatic for a lot of us. Like, right. For me, going through COVID, and there was a lot that happened there. And then my dad passed away in COVID. So I had loss in there. And so I experienced a lot of numbness after COVID and after the loss of my dad. So why do we go numb? And is it always from trauma or loss?
No, I think you mentioned a lot there. So some of it can be a self-taught because we're trying to escape or we're trying not to feel. But sometimes it's modeled to us or we're forced into like, why are you crying? And I think what happens with tears, let's go there, and seeing somebody sad is that it opens up things that you may not you haven't dealt with. Now think about that. So you see somebody begin to cry and tear up, that makes you feel a certain sort of way, makes you jump in and feel sad or the same emotions. And so some people will say like, why are you crying? Or stop crying or like hold your tears. Like there's no point to it. But really they're projecting their numbness on you. Think about that.
Oof.
All right. Yeah. They're projecting their numbness on you so that you don't feel because they don't want to feel. And so now you carry that And so moving forward, you go, anytime I'm going to feel, or I need to feel, or I need to express my emotions, you numb. Again, you scroll until you pass out and fall asleep, until you're really exhausted. These emotions that your soul wants to release, which are a good thing. There's nothing wrong. If you're listening to this, there's nothing wrong with feeling the emotions that you feel. So if you have someone in your life that's telling you like, oh, stop feeling that way, or stop thinking, or stop doing this, it's like, wait a minute. Like, again, maybe this person is projecting on their numbness on you, and why they avoid things, and how they avoid things is through numbing their own pain. And so now this person's barely teaching you how to be disconnected from your own heart. And we shouldn't. Yeah, we should be able to express ourselves. We should be able to express our emotions, whether it's through tears, whether it's joy, whatever that is. Our hearts are there for a reason. And God gave us all these emotions, including anger. There's righteous anger. Something can make you upset, and you could be angry about it. But also express it, right? And I'm not saying like rage or throwing things or hitting people. That's not what I'm saying. But there's the emotion of anger God gave us, including sadness, including joy, being melancholy, being depressed. Like all these things are emotions that we feel. And we should be able to say how we feel instead of numb how we feel.
Yeah. So what's the cost of staying numb?
There's a big cost. You can't selectively numb your emotions. When you shut down pain, remember this, you also shut down joy. Let me repeat that. Right? When we shut down pain, we also shut down joy. What I'm trying to say there is that our intimacy, it really suffers. Our relationship with God basically becomes mechanical, in other words. And over time, our soul begins to just wither. It begins to shrink. And not because, maybe we did anything wrong, Jenna, but because we're training ourselves to stop feeling. We stop feeling. And again, maybe we have someone in our lives that trained us, or, they don't know how to feel the emotions or express their emotions, but doesn't mean that we have to follow suit, that we have to follow what they're doing. Again, we could feel our emotions.
Right. And I think like where my numbness came from was from the grief, and not learning how to go through the grief, instead of I just stuffed it.
Yeah.
Right. And then it just came numb, and it was like, no, we're just going to stuff it, and we're not going to feel anything, because it hurts too much to feel anything. And so I think too, there's a difference between feeling numb and then feeling the pain and using something to numb that pain. Right?
Yeah.
And so like you said, with social media, we use social media to escape.
It's a coping mechanism.
Right. Or people use alcohol because they want to escape the pain that they're in. And I love what you say is that the alcohol isn't, or drug, or whatever the addiction isn't the main problem.
It's not the root cause. It's not the root issue.
Right.
That's just a symptom.
Right. So you have to heal what's underneath that.
Yeah. You got to go to the roots, right? You cut the head off, off the roof. I'm sorry. You cut the head of the root off, but what's underneath is the roots, right? So if you don't go down and dig up the roots.
So like a weed. So if you just pull off the weed,
right,
and you don't get it from the root.
Yep. It'll grow back next spring. It's going to keep getting watered. And so, numbness. I mean, again, there's so many ways to numb ourselves. There's so many ways. So I guess the question we should ask ourselves is, what coping mechanism are we using to numb ourselves so we don't feel? Again, a lot of it could be social media, right? Especially the younger generations, which are on social media constantly. We think, okay, we're going to be, we think, oh, let me just jump on for a couple minutes. And then an hour goes by I mean, there's so much dopamine that our brains are getting. And then here's the other part. Imagine you're training yourself to get so much information in so little time that you're just getting this dopamine hits. And then when it goes to having a conversation with someone at work, or a conversation literally face to face with your spouse, or, a girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, you don't feel anything. Because you're training yourself to be so wired up on, oh, that's funny. Oh, that's fun. And it's the power of scrolling that if you get bored, what do? You scroll the next story, the next story, the next story, until you find something. That's not how relationships work. That's not how jobs work on a day in, day in, day out basis. Nothing works that way except for social media. So again, another piece that we got to be careful with is, I think that's a big one tremendously. I know we're not talking about social media in all of its sense here in this podcast, but we're talking about numbness, and numbness is part of it. Social media is part of it.
Yeah, because I think you're taking a step out of your world and trying to step into
somebody else's world that is having supposedly a good time, or you know what I'm saying?
And then it makes the pain worse, because then you're comparing.
Yeah.
Right? So in one way, you're trying to escape your pain or whatever your reality is by looking at social media, but it's actually doing the reverse effect of making you compare yourself.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not
making you feel worse.
Yeah, but you're seeing people go on vacation, and you're seeing, these beautiful families that you may not have, or, people having things that you may not have, or things that you may desire. And then it puts you further into a depression, or further into a hurt, or, and it's just a cycle that continues on.
Yeah, you're literally just watching someone's highlight reel as you're numbing your pain, and then you jump off of social media. As soon as you close it and you go, oh, I'm back in reality.
Yeah.
Right? And so the escape was for a little while, but now you're back into your situation, whatever that is.
Yeah. So how can someone begin to wake up from that numbness, and what does that journey look like?
Honestly, that's the answer. Honesty. I was like, honestly, it's honesty. I have to name it. I don't think there's any, way around it. Just saying, Jenna, like, hey, I don't feel connected. Like, what do you mean by that? I just don't feel connected. I'm numb. And then, you want to create a space for your heart again to start feeling. And, in my experience, because again, we've all fallen into this. For me, what's helped is prayer, having a conversation with God. That's what prayer is. And just saying, God, like, I want to feel like, or I don't want to use this as an escape, whatever that is. A big one, which I don't do as frequent, but it has helped, is journaling my emotions. Just journaling, how my day went. And it's amazing how when I start putting pen to paper, how much I express myself. Right now I'm going through, a study, and it's powerful. Every time I write down, there's questions, and I write down my answers, is how much pours out of me. How I'm really feeling, or how I felt when something happened. I mean, all these different things. It's really, really powerful. And the truth is, God is not afraid of hearing about our pain. He's not. He's such a big God, right? He's not afraid of hearing how angry I am, or confused, of what's going on in my life. So, again, if you're listening to this, I need you to know that God is with you in it. Okay. And numbness is not failure. All right. So it doesn't mean that you're failing. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It's just a sign that something in you is, ready to wake back up, and you don't have to do it alone.
Right. That's powerful. And what I think about what's so powerful about having community around you too is that they can see things in you and help point them out to you, maybe when you don't see it. Right. And or when you can see it, or when you can't, when you don't see it, or when you can't see it. And I know for me, one time we were at a mall, if you remember, and our stuff had gotten stolen out of our car,
Yeah, I
right?
remember.
We were with our friends, and the cops had come, and they were taking report.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember standing next to my friend, and I pulled out my phone, and I was on social media.
Mm.
And she said out loud to me, "Are you escaping right now, the situation?" And man, I was like, "Oh, man, I didn't realize that I was even doing it," but it was so
Yeah.
true because I was like, "This is a stressful situation." It was triggering from something that had happened in the past, and I don't wanna be here right now, and so I'm gonna pull out my phone, and I'm going to escape.
That's so good. Yeah.
And
I
so
remember that now
yeah.
vividly. Yeah. She was like, Jenna, are you escaping? Are you trying to escape right now? And you were like, huh? You're like, and you had a smile on your face going like, yeah, let me put the phone away. This is
Yeah. But that's what's so powerful about having community and
right.
having people around you who can speak into you like that
Mm,
and in a way call you out. And so even if it's social media or maybe it's somebody who is having a glass of wine every night,
mm-hmm,
like,
mm-hmm.
"Oh, well, it's a stressful day. It's a stressful day."
Yeah.
Okay, what are you escaping from? What are you trying to numb from that stress in your day?
Mm-hmm,
Or maybe it's a beer
mm-hmm,
every night or couple beers,
mm-hmm.
you know, and really trying to check your intentions behind that.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
And I think that's, like, the biggest thing. It's
Yeah.
like, what is my intention behind doing this
Yeah.
right now?
Yeah. And again, community is something that, we're not used to. We're like, you said it, accountability is a big thing.
Mhm.
You know, we're not used to that.
Yeah.
Especially you had given your friend permission, the one that called you out, you say, but it's not calling you out. It's with love, just saying, hey, Jenna, I'm seeing a pattern here, or I'm seeing something that you need to possibly work on.
Mhm.
Maybe you're not noticing it. It's called a blind spot.
Mhm.
Here's a blind spot of yours. And what are you doing?
Mhm.
Because you could have chosen to say, hey, let's pray about it. Let's pray about this and let's trust God in it.
Mhm.
But what do? We escape,
Right.
right? So you don't feel the stress about it. You don't feel or anger because someone stole our stuff and whatever that was, you were numbing the pain,
Yeah,
numbing
absolutely.
the anger.
Yeah, and it can be even food, right? I think
Oh, that's a big one.
there's all kinds of things that people can numb with, but food, sugar, alcohol, whatever, you
Mhm.
name it.
Yeah, whatever it is, so if you're hearing this and you're going, yeah, what is it that I use? What are the things that I run to numb?
Mhm.
And food is something, man, we should have a podcast just on that
Yeah.
because it's something that is, how do you say it? Approved of? Not approved. It's
Well, it's a
more,
social.
well, again, depending if you're using it for numbing,
Yeah,
you can run towards that,
yeah.
but it's not looked down upon. It's not something that you go, oh yeah, well, they're eating, so that's a bad thing.
Right.
But again, it's what is going on in your mind, what's going on in your life that draws you to go eat. When
Mhm.
even if you're not hungry,
Mhm.
right? You're just bored or you're just, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And you run towards that and you go, you're in the refrigerator 35 times a day and you're like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Well, because you're bored.
Yes.
So what do? We eat to numb the
Yeah.
boredom.
Absolutely. Yep. That's me. I'm a recovering emotional eater
Yeah.
is what I am. Whether I was happy, sad,
Mm,
mad, whatever, I used food to celebrate, to make me feel better,
mm.
whatever it was. And I think that's a lot of the culture too, right? Is like, let's celebrate with food. Oh, you're sad here, eat some ice cream. Oh, we are always feeding our feelings
Yeah.
with food. And again, too, it's growing up
Mm-hmm.
with that.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Mom
Oh, yeah.
sees you're not feeling
Mm-hmm.
a certain way. Here, let me cook for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Oh, yeah. Do you want ice cream or do you want this? You want that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a whole nother podcast. Anyways, thank you for being with us today. If this conversation on numbness resonated with you, if you've been moving through life feeling disconnected or shut down, We just want you to know you are not alone.
Mm-hmm.
There is hope, and healing doesn't come from forcing yourself to feel. It comes from giving yourself permission to feel again. And next week,
Oh, yeah, here we go.
we're going even deeper.
Deeper, baby.
Oh, we'll be talking about how productivity can quietly become your identity.
I'm excited about that one. I'm excited.
This is especially for high performers, leaders, and achievers. When your worth is tied to what you do, rest can feel like failure, and stillness can feel scary. So if you've ever asked yourself, who am I when I'm not producing? Don't miss episode 13. So make sure you're subscribed, and if today's episode encouraged you, share it with someone that you love. We will see you next week.
Yep. Thanks for being here.